What's up, YouTube? Florence Trucker here after 3 weeks of driving solo for Roehl Transport. And it has been an interesting 3 weeks. I'm currently just got back. I'm on my 34-hour reset. Uh, as you can see, the beard is coming in nicely. I've only had to trim it once. I got my little strip of silverback on it, so I'm pretty happy about that. I'd like to say that it's been full of interest and intrigue and things to talk about, but for me, it's been relatively normal. My first week was my roughest by far. You're on your own. You make these rookie mistakes. I got out to the truck that I had parked for my 5 days off to start my first week, and the battery was dead to the truck because I had not properly shut everything down. So they came and jumped the truck for me. Took about an hour and a half off my clock, but got through it. So during that week, that first week I was out, I went to Indiana, Ohio, Wisconsin, Missouri, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida with deliveries. Kind of your normal routine stuff there. Some lumber, some steel that I took. In Georgia, going from Georgia to Florida, that was probably a difficult time because the workflow called for us to go on some back roads through small towns, and it was about 120 miles. And because of the speed limits and the amount of stop signs, and you go 55 for a mile, and then you have to drop to 45, and then 35 and 25. It took me about 3.5 hours to travel 120 miles in that area. So, and I had to do that twice. I had to come back through that way for the next load. So, it was hard to plan your route based on how long that took. Got through it. My 5 days out ended up being 9 days out due to a scheduling snafu, so I had to take a 34-hour reset at a Love's at day 5 there in Georgia because my 70-hour clock was up. So I had to reset, work for 3 more days, then I went home and reset again. And while at that Love's, I was racing my 70-hour clock. I mean, I was down to about 30 seconds. So I went through the gas line, and there was a parking spot directly in front of me, and I pulled straight into it. I was racing the clock. I wasn't going to go into violation. So I pulled straight into this spot. Now, most people don't do that. Some truckers do. I'm not one that wants to, but I did simply because I was racing the clock. The problem came the next morning when I had to back out. Backing out is not a problem. The problem is reverse, putting it in gear. I put it in reverse, and my truck shook a lot and made a ton of noise, and it took me like 7 minutes to back out. I woke up the whole truck, the whole parking lot, the whole truck stop parking lot. 2 ladies actually got out of the truck next to me and were trying to figure out what the fuck I was doing. And I kept stalling the truck, and I couldn't figure out why. So finally, as I'm about halfway out, I realized that my reverse is in high gear like a dumbass. I had never thrown my switch down into the lower gears because I was in idle management. You have to keep it in the high gears. So once I pulled my head out of my ass and unfucked myself on that one, I dropped into low gear and backed out without an issue and left. And rightfully so, because like I said, I woke up the entire truck stop. But after that, I got a call from one of the assistant operators of flatbed operations, and they said, hey, we're looking for 5 drivers in Kentucky who are regional to start a pilot plan for a dedicated line for North American Steel. Would you be interested? I said, yeah, sure. I said, what's it involved? They said, well, very little will change for you. Same hours. You'll average about 100 to 150 miles more than you are now. Plus, you'll be knowing your route. You'll be going to dedicated stops from North American Steel. So I said, okay. So the following week, the week 2, I dropped a load in Wisconsin of lumber, and they said, hey, we're going to go ahead and start you on this dedicated now. So they sent me to The dedicated route is for North American Stainless Steel in Ghent, Kentucky. Now, Ghent, Kentucky is only about 50 miles from Florence, so it works out really well for me. So I went to North American Stainless, and North American Stainless has some rules. You have to be in pants, long shirt, hard hat at all times. I did not have long sleeve shirts initially when I showed up. So I explained to the lady what was going on, and they kind of gave me a mulligan that day. And I went and bought some long sleeve shirts after that. But I loaded up. So the idea is we carry coils from North American Stainless to 3 different distributors in Chicago, in the Chicago area. So for the next week, I ran that route from North American in Ghent, Kentucky, all the way up through Indiana, all the way to the west side of Chicago, to 3 different distributors. I did that the first week, got everything lined up. Did it the second week, which is his last week, without any issues. Getting better at it, chaining, tarping, everything has to be chained and tarped. It's always the same load, it's always the same place. I go to a place called Olympic Steel. I go to a place called TSA Processing, and I forgot the name of the third place. 2 of them, though, it's nice because I can drive right into the building, and they lift it off with a crane for me. The third one I do have to back into, and their parking areas right off the road. Their garage is like parking the truck in one of those little New York hot dog stands, but we get through it. It just takes some time. So, did all that, and now I'm back here for my reset. So, a couple issues we did run into. One, my truck needed new tires and had an electrical issue with the turning signals. So I had to submit that yesterday. I had to go in first for the headlights. The driver's side headlights stopped working. I figured, okay, it's just a bulb, so I'll grab a bulb and change it. Pulled it out, put it in, nothing. So they had to take it in that morning when I was supposed to be delivering and fix it. Now, Roehl at Gary, the mechanics there, they do an incredible job. They don't waste time. My truck was in and out. Within about 45 minutes, they had fixed the wiring harness and fixed my light. The problem came after I made my delivery, and on my way back, my passenger side turn signal went out. Also thought it was a light bulb. Nope. Wiring issue. So I had to go back there. Now, they took my truck in right away, but they had it for about 3 hours. Now, for a couple reasons. One, they found an issue with one of my tires. So they had to change all 8 of my drive tires. So I got 8 brand new drive tires. And then they had to fix the wire harnessing for my turn signal. So they had it for about 3 or 4 hours. Threw my day off completely. Called my fleet manager, said, listen, I'm not going to make this load. He's like, here's what we'll do. He sent me back to Ghent, Kentucky to pick up a load, which is what I did this morning. Come home for 48-hour reset. And then Sunday, at about noon, I'm going to go back to Gary, sit there overnight, and then the delivery from that point is about 54 miles away, Monday morning at 8. So I'll make that delivery Monday morning at 8. Getting to know the route just fine. About between the different buildings, between about 348 to 352 miles one way, depending on the who I'm delivering to. The problem with the route I have is the first 95 miles go through mountains and very rural Indiana. So there's very small towns, 2-lane highway, low speed limit, lots of stop signs, lots of speed up and slow down. And that 90 miles takes me about an hour and a half. No, it actually takes me closer to 2 hours to get through. So it makes trip planning initially a little bit more difficult. The second part is Chicago. I got caught in traffic at the Friday end of my week 2. tried to be brave, thought I knew what I was doing, thought I could make the delivery and get back to Gary in time with my hours. No. I went over my 11-hour clock, and I went over my 14-hour clock. I went into violation by almost 3 hours sitting in traffic in Chicago. They had truck stops in Chicago. A couple of them, the city-run ones, are called Oases, but they're all full. They all fill up. Trucker Path shows that they historically fill up around 3:30 in the afternoon. My delivery was at 4. So the first 5 places I tried, they were all full. At that point, I was like, look, I got to get going, get out of here, go to Gary. Sat in traffic for 2 hours. It took me 2 hours to travel 48 miles to Gary. Went over my clock. So lesson learned. So my trip planning involves giving myself 4.5 hours from arrival to delivery to get out of Chicago. I cannot, I don't have time or the ability to try and get a parking spot in Chicago. It just doesn't happen. The good thing is Gary is approximately 50 to 55 miles away from each one of my drops. So my goal when I do my planning is, 1, to leave Ghent early enough to get through that 90-mile corridor of mountains that takes me 2 hours, and to try and avoid being in Chicago for more than 4 hours. So it's a balancing act. We're getting better at it. I've been beating up my fleet manager a lot with phone calls, trying to get things straight. There's been some issues on the planning end, trying to get the workflow to go smoothly for me, because I'll show up at North American as a dedicated driver and they don't have an assignment for me. That happened this morning. It took about 30 minutes to resolve. But it's a new process, so we're getting there. So some lessons to take away. 1, make sure you always shut your power off to your vehicle. 2, make sure you have your keys with you. 3, make sure you secure all your items in your truck. Somebody got into my truck, into the driver's side compartment by my drive tires, and stole all 6 of my rubber friction mats. Why? I don't know. I have no clue. Rubber friction mats are really only used for coils. So unless he had coils, and I don't know, there were snap binders in there. There was some padding in there, and there were 2 steel tarps in there. But all this person took was the rubber friction pads. So lock your truck up, secure your items, and just be wary of your planning your route, because it's real easy to say, okay, 350 miles at the Roehl planning speed of 50 miles an hour means I'll be there in 7 hours. There's a truck stop here, here, and here. Well, okay. A couple things to keep in mind. Love's truck stops don't generally have a lot of parking. TA truck stops do. Petro stops do. Now, this is in my small 3-week experience on my own in Indiana, okay, and other places I've been. From what I've seen so far, Love's do not have a lot of parking spots, but TAs and Petros do. That's one thing to keep in mind too. Check the weather. Rain will slow you down significantly. And check your terrain. Going up those mountains outside of Ghent, the speed limit is 55, but my truck towing 44,000 pounds of steel coil, I can only get up those mountains at 35 miles an hour, at the max 40. So that all adds into everything you have to do with your planning. So even with a dedicated route, I'm still learning what to do, and I'm having to learn, trial by fire. I'm having to do something, I'm having to mess up, I'm having to fix it, and I'm having to adjust it for the next time. So take that with a grain of salt. Next week, I'm back to dedicated. I haven't run into any significant issues. There's one, I'm pretty fortunate on my dedicated route. There's one weigh scale on my route. It's going from Chicago to Kentucky in Indiana, which means every time I pass it, my pre-pass is approved to let me go. But even if it's not approved, I'm deadheading that way. So my max weight is 30,600 pounds. I don't have a load or reason for DOT to really mess with me. So I haven't had any real significant experiences with that other than when I was in training and we got stopped by DOT that one time. But Roehl will tell you, look, if you're ever involved with them, courteous, kind, yeah, got it. I'll make sure I am. Don't mouth off, that kind of thing. And then keep track of everything you do when you drive, because I didn't realize how in depth until I started going that Roehl tracks everything I do in real time, from speeding to hard brakes to not braking soon enough. I had a video sent to me from my my fleet manager saying the system had tagged me for failure to brake soon enough. There was an incident where a semi had pulled in front of me. He wasn't moving. He was moving faster than me. I made a judgment call. I didn't hit the brakes right away till I got closer. Well, I got flagged for it, and Roehl sent it to me. I've also gotten flagged for going down a steep hill. Wasn't paying attention. I hit 76 miles an hour. I got nailed for that as well. So watch your speed, watch your lanes, watch the people around you. Remember, the camera is always on, and it's always recording. And if safety or someone sees something they believe needs to be addressed, it's going to go to your fleet manager, and they're going to address it with you. So right now, those were my only issues. I don't have my truck's governed, so I just have to be careful in the city areas when it comes to speeding. But you can still get caught by it with the camera. With someone that jumps in front of you, you don't stop fast enough, you don't roll down your windows for railroad checks. They know that too. So just watch what you're doing when you get on your own solo. And this is just coming from a guy with 3 weeks experience. I'm by no means earned any type of super trucker status. I don't think I ever will. But if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Until then, I'll update you guys in a couple weeks.